Hi, I'm Mac McCarthy, and I help people with their breakup, situationships, and limited beliefs. And today we're going to talk about when an ex is breadcrumbing you to come back, real breakup stories unpacked. If you have a breakup story you want to send it into writemac.com. The link's below. Commercial over. We do have B on deck today for a special appearance.
What's up, guys?
He was let out on good behavior. I won't say for what or who, but he's doing well right now. So I said, let's get you on. Let's get you back on deck. That's what we do with this channel. We get you back on deck.
I love it.
Right. So when an ex is breadcrumbing, what do you, I just noticed that my title has a typo. When an ex is breadcrumbing you to come back. Okay. So what do you think off the top of your head, B, before I get into my stuff?
So, okay. Well,
he's not ready.
Just
all right.
Hold on.
All right. So number one, what to look for. All right. When an ex is breadcrumbing you to come back. Number one, why are they breadcrumbing you? Okay. This is a question you can ponder. A lot of times you're just reacting, right? You're just, oh, they sent me another message. Now it's become a pattern. It's become something they keep doing regularly. Why do you think they're doing it? Right. And it would be a different answer for different personalities and different types of people. Mm-hmm. So number two, what's their personality? So if their personality is friendly, or if their personality is sentimental, or if they're the type that they didn't want to hurt you, what do you think? Then you can kind of come across their motives based on their personality. So someone that's really cold and stern and direct probably doesn't breadcrumb, mm-hmm. right? They're probably not going to breadcrumb you. So what's their personality? Now, if this is part of their personality that they just like to be nice, and this could be women or men, mm-hmm. they just think like, oh, I'll just keep in contact because it's a nice thing to do. And I know that, John really misses me and wants to get back with me, but maybe by me saying some kind things, sometimes
dropping little things here and there.
Yeah, little comments, mm-hmm. and like maybe a couple messages on social media or Instagram here and there, a couple likes. Maybe I'm going to be doing him a favor. All the while, John's sitting at home going, does she want to get back together? And she's going, what's going on this Friday night?
Right.
So what's her personality, or what's his personality in relation to breadcrumbing? So if you, like I said, if you have someone that's really stern, honest, direct, they probably don't breadcrumb that much. So if you heard from them, it would probably be a message that's a little less cryptic. Right. Number three, do they have commitment issues? I think this is one of the best questions to ask, because there are many people out there that have commitment issues. They don't like to be in long-term relationships. It's just not something that they've done over their span of relationships. So for them, they're very comfortable with breadcrumbing or staying in contact post-breakup, because once they breaking up to them is something that we can stay in contact. We're okay.
Yeah.
Right.
We're
so
good.
If they have commitment issues, another thing to think about too, if you're, oh, they've been breadcrumbing me, they seem interested. Even if they seem interested, they're still weary or wary of committing. So the problem's still there. All right. Do they mention being friends? Did they mention being friends? So if you're like, oh, they've been breadcrumbing, did they tell you, hey, let's be friends, and you agreed? Hey, I think we can be friends, and you agreed? Because then it's not really breadcrumbing.
So they're just following up on their commitment of being a friend?
Right.
Okay.
So keep that in mind. Or are you playing the friend? I'd also add, talk to a close friend, a coach like myself, book a session, and go through like, what are the messages that you're perceiving as breadcrumbing? Also, it could be that they're just keeping you around or engaged as an option because they're interested. They still have feelings for you, but they still want to be single. And that's where the commitment issues come in. If they're at a place, and this is really hard for a lot of people, you're at a place where you're like, we can be together for life. I could marry you, take it a step lower, boyfriend, girlfriend, etc. And they're like, I'm just not ready for a relationship. But you don't hear that, right? And you think you made a bad approach or a bad move. You didn't really make a bad move or a bad approach. They're not ready for a commitment. They're not in the right space. And they told you that. So if you feel like they're breadcrumbing you after that fact, they're probably just impulsively acting on kind feelings, but they still don't want to get in a relationship. Number 5, what do you feel after you finish interacting with them? This is very important. So if you interact with them, you feel like you're being misled, misdirected, uncomfortably unknowing of what this all meant, you probably want to eliminate those kind of messages by just blocking them or going on a social media fast, because the anxiety you can get from messages that you can't figure out can stay with you all night, all day, and you could misinterpret them. So if you're feeling like, I don't even understand where this is coming from, what they mean by this, take some inventory, because it's probably clear to an outsider what they're meaning, but to you, you might want it to mean something else. So doing this for a while, there's a lot of stock put in likes.
Liking a picture or okay.
Yeah, like Instagram or Facebook. Doing this for 6 years now. I keep saying 5 years. It's coming up on 6 years. We won't have an anniversary party. But the thing is, the like thing, this is a great example. I don't like a lot of posts personally. Like, doesn't mean I don't like I just don't take the time to do that. But some people put a lot of stock and how much that would be a breadcrumb for some people. She liked my picture at the beach and we're broken up. Now, if that's an individual that likes, I don't know, many things on Instagram as a habitual habit,
almost like everything they see, they're hitting the
there's
like
people
button.
like that, right?
Of course, yeah.
Then it's probably not that you're special or they're trying to make a move on you. It's probably just how they interact on that app.
Just their normal social media habits.
I would say don't put a lot of stock in likes. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a positive. So I'm not saying that like, oh, it's not positive. No, it's okay. Just don't feel like, oh, maybe they want to get back together after they liked one of my photos. I think it's a bit of a stretch. See, it says that they're still engaged in watching you and checking things. But if they're already active on that thing a lot, chances are you're one of 20 likes. And it could be, cats pissing in the wind, standing up, right? There's all kinds of stuff on there. So don't put a lot of stock in that as a breadcrumbing thing. Now, if they send you a message or they take the time to write something and the something is like a little bit personal, again, it's social media. And in that moment, in that day, they could be feeling like, oh, cool post. And you're like, oh, no, it meant more than a cool post. Don't overreact to it, right? Still interacting on the phone, on a Zoom call, in person, that's paramount to passive comments and likes, okay? Number 6, and really, if someone's breadcrumbing you by liking your stuff, that's someone that's so passive, you're really going to have to carry the weight on getting them to go out with you enough, and it could be exhausting. Number 6, what do you want? So like if you keep, I see this all the time, people react to what's happening to them by their ex. Oh, they're liking my, what do you want though? Like if you just stop for a minute, reacting to what they're doing, what they're saying, if they're calling you or not, what do you really want? Well, I want to get back with them. I want to marry them. I want to have kids with them. I have to stop people sometimes because I'm like, all right, just stop at the, 5 years away from now and just start with one date in person. They say no, you say okay. If they say yes, you go on one date and you go on another one, hopefully. Stop getting ahead of yourself about all these things you're going to do for them. If you want to get back with them, the goal should just be to go on a date.
Keep it in the moment.
Right. Yeah. But also be clear on what you want, because sometimes when you ask yourself what you want, you're like, I want them back, but I want them to not do this and to do that, and that's not available. Number 7, what are the terms of the breakup? So what were the terms of the breakup? This is very important to breadcrumbing. So they left you and they said, I just want to be single. They left you and they said, I don't love you anymore. They left you and they said, I think the hardest one is if someone says, I'm not attracted to you again. That's a gut punch. But they said what their reasons. That will tell you about the breadcrumbing thing. So if their reasons are like, I'm just not ready right now, I got to figure my life out, and I'm PTSD, I'm ADHD, I'm bipolar, this comes up a lot, and you keep trying, you got to give them their space and realize if they contact you after saying that, they're still not necessarily ready. Right? They're not ready for a relationship. So what were the terms of the breakup in relationship to the breadcrumbing? And number 8, what's their intentions? You know them better than I do. Are they an evil character? Are they someone that likes to mess with people? There's some people like that.
Yeah. Are they trying to manipulate?
Are they vindictive? Do they love attention? Are they someone that people that are ego attention getters, influencers or junior influencers or people that are used to getting a lot of attention? Their intention might just be keeping you in the crowd. You know, they're used to getting all this fanfare, and now you're out of it. So if you can gauge their intentions, that'd be nice. And also I'd add with the breadcrumbing, some people in relationships, it's not like they're doing it on purpose or they're planning to do this, especially with social media. They're going through the, oh yeah, okay. Oh, there's B, like his post. Oh, there's this. There's this. Oh, cool. You went to a pizza place. Oh, cool. All right. There's not a whole lot of depth in that. Now, what's interesting is sometimes people marinate over what's been done on social media a lot, and you're not going to really know because someone's not going to go, well, I'm going to tell you the real meaning behind that like. Right? Mm-hmm. So it's positive. I just had a client earlier this week that he had an ex that asked a friend how he was. And before, this is really interesting because they had a long distance relationship for a long time, and he got kind of in the friend zone. And then he built up the strength to say, hey, look, I don't want to be friends anymore. And she's like, I'm really happy that you mentioned that and that I'm not ready for a relationship. So they stopped talking after that. So it's not necessarily a great thing, but he got some clarity. He stopped being in the friend zone. So now it's been 4 or 5 months later, and she says to a friend like, hey, how's so-and-so? And he was asking, isn't that a positive? Sure, it's a positive. It's a positive thing, but it's not a reason to start talking as friends again. Now, if she wants to reach out, she knows how to find you. You seem to be doing really well, so just leave it alone. It's really hard for people to do sometimes. Anything to add to this, B, about?
Yeah, I was just thinking, maybe one more to be kind of like how frequent are the breadcrumbs? Like, are they dropping them all the time? Are they like in every single post? Is it 1, 2 here? Like what's going on? So that might be the frequency of it. That's what I was thinking.
Frequency, I would add too, like the flirtiness, if that's a word. If they're saying like, damn, you look good, or
right.
Now saying that's actually a personality thing. Right? There's some people out there that could think that a woman or a man looks good, but they'll never tell them. They're just not big on high compliments. And there's some women out there that they're really comfortable telling 20 guys, wow, you look great today. Compliment people on the way they look all the time because that's just how they're built. So keep that in mind too. Like if you get complimented on that, or you're like, wow, they didn't even say I look good, or that, is that in their character to do that? Is that in their personality to do that? As much as you want it. The frequency thing, to go back to that, keep in mind if it's really shallow, and when I mean shallow, I don't mean shallow in the way that someone's looking down on you, more like
a like of a picture or something.
It's just not a deep
it's not
message. It's like, hey, how have you been? I'm great. Oh, work's great. Oh, right. I had a long drive home today. Okay, that's like small talk that's meaningless, and it never gets redirected in any direction. All right, we do have a couple stories on deck, or questions actually today. They're not long stories.
What's up, May? How are you? How's your day going? Or night?
May's
in there.
In Mexico.
Oh, okay.
All right. Hey, Coach, I've been watching your channel for a long time now. I wanted to ask you about the type of ex that doesn't want me back, but keeps posting cryptic messages about us on Facebook. So this is why I chose that title today.
Okay.
And here's the thing about cryptic messages. I would want to see, in this particular case, I'd want to know like what was said, because you might be interpreting it as cryptic because you want to believe it's that, almost like a conspiracy
Just your
theory.
perception of yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I told her this week that I love her and I absolutely want her back. I want to get back with her. Okay, I want to ask you about the type of ex that doesn't want me back but keeps posting cryptic messages about us on Facebook. I told her this week that I love her and I absolutely want to get back with her and that I'm ready to marry her one day. She responded that I was being too heavy on emotion and that she needs time to find what she really wants, and right now it's not marriage with me. But maybe down the road we can revisit things.
Was this right after? So he told this woman that he loved her right after she's posting these cryptic messages.
Well,
that might be a little heavy.
This is why I always tell people to do a live coaching session.
Right.
I don't know if it was right after,
Okay.
so I'd have to ask that. That being said, it is. And so this is a classic case of 0 to 100. It's uncomfortable, and you don't just want them back. You want them back more than ever because you miss them. So you feel like going to 1,010% of like, I'll have kids with you, I'll marry you.
It's a little,
it's counterintuitive. So she responded, I was being too heavy on emotion, that she needs time and that she really wants, and right now it's not marriage with me, but maybe down the road we can revisit things. So that might be breadcrumbing to some people. I asked, when would that be? So that right there, this is a big mistake a lot of guys make. Well, when would that be? It's like, she doesn't have any fucking clue.
Give me an exact date.
It's like, now you're being annoying. She doesn't have a date or a time or a guarantee. She said maybe things down the road. You respond to that. Okay. Right? Okay. Keep your self-respect, your dignity, and your balls if you can, please. I asked, when would that be? She responded to just stop asking. And now today she sent me a message that she's missing me and thinks about the time we used to go to the lake together. I told her I'm there. I'm here when she's ready. And she told me that at the end of the month, she'd like to go on a trip with me, but she doesn't want me to get any ideas. So she's controlling the situation. She doesn't want to get back with you. She certainly doesn't want you to, and this is going to sound crazy, but she doesn't want you to make it easy to get back with her. Don't get any ideas. Don't.
But let's go on a trip.
Yeah.
Let's go on a trip.
So don't go, oh, great, and get all heavy again and say, just, all right, let's plan the trip. Just focus on the trip. All right? And don't, well, what is no idea? Not for me to get any ideas. Don't ask any questions about that. Don't respond to that. Just leave it alone. As of now, we are just friends with the chance of getting back together, but also the chance of nothing. Now, if you're in a very good place, if you're strong, you're stable, you're okay with things, you're pretty confident on your own, you could easily just go okay to that statement. You don't have to agree to be friends, but you can be okay with that statement and going into that trip like, all right, maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. Now, if you're anxious or you're triggered by that, or it makes you uncomfortable, or you need some kind of guarantee, you probably can't go on that trip.
If you can stay focused or live in the moment, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And just feel like it's okay. Like, all right, fine. You think you want to be friends. Okay, fine. Let's go to the lake though. Now, if that continues and you go to the lake and you guys do the frenzy thing and you feel odd and awkward, don't do it again.
But it's worth testing, right?
It's worth testing if your confidence is high enough,
right.
or your feelings about yourself are high enough that you can handle if it doesn't go well. Just like when you first start dating someone, you don't have any expectations. You don't care as much if it doesn't go well.
Sure. You're not losing too much.
Yeah. She also told me that, all right, we're just friends getting back together, but also a chance of nothing. She also told me she has dated a guy from work and that she likes him, but right now she just wants to be single. What do I make of all this? Well, if that really bothers you, it's up to your morals and values to ride with that. This was your girlfriend before. Now she's saying she's hooking up with someone else and she wants to be friends. That's a stark change in your reality. And some guys will be like, oh, it's okay, but it's really not okay. If it's not okay, don't do it. Don't put yourself in that situation. Be honest with yourself. Because what she's saying, oh, I'm talking to this guy at work. So when you guys are together at the lake, by the way, I'd keep in mind, are you paying for everything at the lake? I don't have a problem with it. But is that your pleasure to do so? Is she going to be texting this guy while you're there? Is this guy going to show up while you're there? You got to make these things. And this is why sometimes in relationships like this, where you're kind of trying to feel out being breadcrumbed, just for a moment, entertain the idea of just being done. I'm not saying you have to do that. Just journal out. Like, what if I was just done? What if I just said, you know what? Breadcrumbs or no breadcrumbs, I'm out. I don't want to play this friends game. You already started hooking up with someone from work. And really, unless you have kids, like marriage, something else tying you together, at that point, it's hard to go out on a date and not think about it. She's not even trying to hide it. She's saying, I want to be single. I don't want to be with you.
Yeah, she communicated that already, right?
You can ride with that. Just remember, you're riding in the back seat. She's got an empty seat in the front for someone better.
That's a good way of, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so when you do that, you just lose a little bit of self-respect. On the flip side, if you're like, oh, I've been talking to a few women, I'm kind of comfortable being on my own. I got my own place. I got a decent job. I feel good about myself and going to the gym, whatever. Go on that trip because you feel like if it goes wrong, I'm cool.
I'm good.
Because the ideal thing would be like, I can talk to people too. Hey, coach, my ex-girlfriend called me last night after being in no contact for 3 weeks, and she told me she wants me back. Started crying, telling me that she can't stop thinking about us. Well, this is no contact. People say, when does no contact work? Week 3, week 4 is usually that time when it gets really difficult.
Enough time has passed where it's
21 days
real.
They say makes a habit, so 21 days would break a habit too. So it's like in that time frame, it's very common for people to crack. I agreed to meeting up, but I'm getting nervous as she was the one that broke up with me. And when we broke up, she told she didn't love me anymore, and I still don't know what to do with that. We'll accept it as reality right now. Okay, so that's a big pill to swallow. I'd have to ask more questions if we were in a live coaching session. But if someone says they don't love you anymore, I don't know their definition of love. So everyone has a different definition of what real love is and what isn't. Some people, when they say that, I find what they're translating, but they're not going to say directly, is I've lost attraction. Then this is often when I still love you, but I'm not in love with you. They don't want to say, well, you're not as attractive and you're fat now. They wouldn't say that to be nice.
Most people.
Right?
People
So
might.
doesn't it sound much better? I'm love you, but I'm not in love with you. Well, what would be the difference of being in love? Would it be attraction? Probably for most people. That being said, what do you do with that statement? Number one, you got to accept it. Number two, leave her alone. Let her sit in it. Go in no contact. Once someone says something like that heavy to you, don't try to switch it around. That's a deep statement. We broke up. She told me that she didn't love me anymore. I still don't know what to do with that. On the phone, she said she realized that she does love me and that she's sorry. If you were on that conversation, one question you might ask, well, what brought you to that conclusion? Can you elaborate? And what was the issue before where you fell out of love? Maybe ask her to elaborate on that. Do I just take her back or make her work for it? Great question. It's only been 3 weeks. I'd have to know more of what your problems were. I would say this: if you want to get back together and she's crying and she's saying that she made a mistake, you go back, you go out with her, but I don't think you need to go out of your way to make her work for it. Right? Now, a lot of people do that because the last 3 weeks you've been hurt. So you're going to want to hurt her back when she comes back. But I don't think you need to do that. When someone comes back and they're hat in hand and they're all in, what else do you want? Right? What else do you want? I mean, I want her back, but I also don't trust her completely. And a lot of my stuff is still in her garage. So I have to see her anyways. Well, if you want her back, You don't have to move in with her right away. You don't have to get the stuff out of the garage. Leave that alone. Go out to dinner, do something together, make some plans. Don't move right back in. Go out on a couple dates, have some good chats, have some intimacy, see where it leads.
Try not to put too much on it.
Yeah. Do you think we are ready to get back together? I would need to know more to your story, but I would say this. Some people can do this. They can have moments where they feel like they fall out of love or they're in a bad place. And then after 3 weeks, they realize from missing you that they really want to get back together. Now, on the flip side, you don't have to get back together today just because she wrote that to you, but you could go on a date or hang out and start to rebuild things. Not having trust is a natural thing, and that's just built over time. The good news for you is this isn't a cheating situation or stealing or something like that. This is more just trusting that she loves you and she's not going to maybe hurt you and say that again. So if I was doing a live coaching, one of the questions I was asked, have you guys broke up and made up before? Is this a pattern?
Right.
Is this a good thing for her to come back like this? Yes. Because it's exactly what you're looking for with no contact. It's like the ideal situation is someone realizes how much of value you have in their life and they really, really want you back and they're sorry and they're reversing basically out of what they thought before. So I would say that you're in a good position. Just remember, there's no guarantees of certainty. If you have more questions on that, book a session and we'll get a little deeper into it. I mean, that's a good thing. Yeah. I think you were talking about it in the sense that they came back. Well, the rain started.
Oh yeah, it's coming in.
Breadcrumbing is an interesting thing because it can be defined by different people differently.
Yeah, based on, like you said, their personality or, how the relationship ended, what's going on. Like, there's a lot of different factors going in there.
If it's happening for a long time and you're not making progress, you got to take some inventory and go, all right, I have power to just block this person and
especially
stop.
If it hurts you, right? Like if it's hurting. Yeah.
If it's hurting you or making you misled and they're never wanting to meet up, then you got to entertain the fact that this isn't working. And also, if you're getting breadcrumbed for a long period of time, make sure you're honoring the option of dating someone else, that you have the ability to not just follow this person as water in the desert. So
yeah, that could shape your thinking for sure. If you're just not dating or doing anything, then yeah.
Well, and also you're hanging on the things.
Yeah.
So the goal post breakup of a breadcrumb situation is to go out again, to see each other, to not interact on lower level communication, which is like texting and not talking about things that are important to getting back together, right?
A little deeper stuff.
Right. And sometimes people, their personality, that's why I mentioned what's their personality. It's like some people's personality, they're not going to tell you they want to get back with you. They're too stubborn. They feel like they'd be giving in too much. This is where I say attachment starts to show itself, usually in times of stress and insecurity. All of us like to think we are go-getters, but the inner child comes out in times of trauma. Sure. This is why I said with attachment theory, I find it a little bit more interesting or useful if someone's gonna, and by the way, I've been anti-attachment theory, it seems like, for a long time, but because it gets flooded into the breakup space and the breakup stories as the number one problem. But when someone labels that post breakup, they're not really fixing anything. They're just labeling someone and they've already hooked up. Now, if you start dating someone or you're in the part of the relationship where someone just changed their behavior really quick, it might be useful. The only problem with it is it's not 100% accurate in any way, and people treat it like it's 100% accurate, if that makes sense. So they almost treat it like it's 100% factual, especially when they diagnose someone else. It's like if I said to oh yeah, you're anxious, he'd have to take some inventory. Well, I mean, do you know me like that well in a relationship? No, I don't. Right? There's certain circumstances and situations where you're going to act different. But there's definitely some people that line up avoidance or anxious or those things. I think it's quite interesting when someone goes, I'm secure. Because I personally believe, I don't care how secure you are, you can be in the 90 percentile of secure with yourself, but you can have a situationship
Sure.
or a moment that proves that you're like, oh shit,
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to me.
No one's bulletproof, I think, in that situation.
Just had a client recently that's just in a zone where he's like, everything's crumbling. He's like, I'm losing confidence over a relationship, and they've gotten back together. They're together now, and he still feels something insecure and upset about some of the things she did before, that led them to their breakup. And if you don't speak up about your problems or you cross your boundaries, it's hard to get back to that level of secure feeling. So I think that even if you're secure, you can get knocked off that post.
Oh yeah.
And that's where you get back to baseline, right? Those truth boundaries. Of love.
Yep.
The truth of love. Didn't you change it from the truth of love to something else? I thought you changed it to something maybe. Man, we're going to start doing some more videos on other stuff. This breakup stuff, man. Unbelievable, huh?
And then I am anxious as fuck when it comes to trauma. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let me ask you this.
Okay.
Truth of life.
Life. There we go.
Truth of life. Okay, got you. That's what I was wondering. All right, so you switched back? What are you, breadcrumbing us here, man? Huh? Make a decision. All right, so this is one of those like broad term things though. If you say, I'm anxious AF, I won't use those words.
I'll use them.
Why change a winning formula? For sure.
There you go. Yeah.
When it comes to trauma. All right, so when someone says trauma, there's got to be a specific flavor of trauma that is going to get you anxious compared to some other trauma that gets someone else anxious. If someone's afraid of dogs, and every time a dog comes out, they scream because they've been bitten by a dog before and had reconstructive surgery on their thumb, had 7 rabies shots. That's traumatic.
Yeah.
Right? Someone would be like, oh, that's not trauma. Yeah, right. It is actually. So every time that person sees a dog, they're like screaming or yelling or running up the stairs. Now, that would make them anxious. That wouldn't be anxious attachment, though. That would be different, right? Because it's a different thing. So it's like, what would be the specific trauma with being anxious? And I think it would be different for different people. And that's where I think it doesn't stop at just identifying someone with their attachment theory. It's identifying within that attachment what happens. And then, some people can be for a minute, they can look at the multiple personality people or the people that are different characters and different jobs. So, but I would say that when dating, if you identify some of these characteristics, it could be a little looser.
A little looser.
So, Clutch, maybe it depends what caused the anxiety. Most people, it has to do with abandonment. If you had someone that's, it's 1:11 right now, make a wish. If you had someone that is a total avoidant dating another avoidant, what happens? Do they never make it happen? I know this is good that Clutch is on right now because this is his stuff, man. I remember one time we talked about this, I think years back. You had a sermon on it. I was like, I had to raise my hand to maybe get in there. He had like 40 minutes. He just went off.
Just going.
And then he just dropped the mic. And I'm like, so you think this is 100%? I said something like, this is 100% accurate or factual? He goes, find something better. I was like, two magnets and put them on the same pole side? What do you mean by that? So can two avoidants have a relationship? Do you think that's possible? Do you know much about attachment theory?
So I'm like, I don't know. Maybe.
He just went, don't even ask me, man. This
I'm not an expert on this.
Do you want to come on today and talk about this, Clutch? I know it's late for you.
6 people on deck right now. What's up, guys?
Like, because that's what I want to talk about attachment is that how it works for dating rather than breakups, which is different to me. Let's see if he's. And then there's the anxious with the avoidant.
Okay.
And then there's just secure.
I am max conscious.
Isn't that a Jamie Foxx? Have you ever seen that? Jamie Foxx was
stand up or
they were roasting some guy. You know the roast. You know when people get roasted.
Yeah.
Is that what they call it? A roast?
Like a celebrity roast.
Yeah. I always thought like, why do people do that? Oh, roast me. It's like, are you really gonna take like 7 people's making fun of you on the highest level and be like,
some
you
of them
got
are pretty
me?
funny though.
Yeah, but you know the person getting roasted deep down is like, fuck you, dude.
Right.
Like that one got me. And Jamie Foxx was on one of these and he just kept, this guy was big and he wasn't as big a comic. Not fat, but a big guy, like tall. Yeah. And he just kept interrupting him. Like, this is your subconscious. This is your subconscious, man. This is your subconscious. And he kept, I'll have to pull it up one time, and the guy was, you could see the guy wanted to like fight.
Oh, he was.
And he just kept needling him.
Uh-huh.
All right.
I've seen that clip, by the way. Yeah, I've totally seen that clip.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. This is your conscience. Is he really here right now?
Yeah, and the guy was like, he started really trying to talk, like let it go and smile, and then he'd be like, "This is your conscience right now. This is your conscience." Like, and then everyone just starts roaring because it's Jamie Foxx. So they're gonna, you know what I mean?
Right.
So the
other guy was just.
Yeah, the backstory is the comic starts bombing, but he starts bombing hard, like really hard. And he's so desperate to try to keep the room that he starts making like fun of the fact that he's black and like he's surrounded by a bunch of people. And he's just like, maybe I'll make a joke about the black people. That will get me on their side. And Jamie Foxx is just ripping this kid. Like I felt so bad for him, but
it was right. Like I did too, because I was like, Jamie, like,
but it's a roast, dude. So
I know, but the way he was doing it, it was like, leave him alone now, dude. He's had enough. You got him.
That was like 3rd degree burns type roast. Like you don't go that far.
Okay.
He was bullying him.
I think that you sign like that contract when you're a comic. Like, you know what I mean? You sign up for that.
That's true.
You go hard on people.
That's true.
It is.
That's true.
Depends on the type of comic.
True. You could be like,
we could do a coach's roast. That would be good. I remember it's a coach's roast. I would welcome it. It'd be fun.
Let's be nice here, guys.
I foresee many scarred egos after that one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, let's not go too hard.
And you know what's funny is like everyone's laughing and then someone gets hit with like a hard one.
Like the Jamie Foxx thing, and you're like, oh, that was a little too much.
The Jamie Foxx one, if you see it, the guy's trying to let it go or move on, and he just keeps interrupting him. And that's the part where
because he hit a spot and like everyone was loving it.
Yeah, so and everyone just kept like, he didn't let him up for air. It's like the dude's like, all right, you got me. Like, you're bigger than I am. Okay, like stop.
It was Doug Williams. That's who it was.
That guy's quarterback for the Doug Williams was a quarterback for the Redskins, I believe, back in the day. Not the same Doug Williams.
Dropping some knowledge. All right.
You know so much about sports, Mac. Like, I love hockey, but the way you throw out stats about basketball amazes me.
What did you say you had like cards as a kid you would collect and you would like memorize?
No,
all the
you know what
stats
it
or something
was,
like
and this is actually, it's funny how you get some of your habits when you're older, when you really look at your childhood beyond traumas, right? Because everyone goes into traumas, and you know what I mean, like just how you are, maybe some of your good parts. But my grandfather, when I was a kid, just one of those things where he was like, you always, San Francisco Chronicle, which newspapers are nothing now, but my grandfather and my dad read newspapers every day, and they got 2 of them, and they had a chair, like a lazy boy chair, and they read their paper every day.
It was just their thing to do, right? Yeah.
Right. So my grandfather, I remember he was like, and I was young, like 4 or 5 years old. I was really young, and I liked my grandfather. I got along with him well. And he was like, you always read the sporting green first. And San Francisco Chronicle was like a green stripe on it. Dude, I read the sports page from the newspaper every morning. Because you're probably till I was like fucking 20. That's funny. Isn't that funny how and I would always just pull the sports, and I would read box scores. I was really into box scores. Okay. So I would remember stats from.
So it's a newspaper.
And my grandfather also showed me, he had like a scrapbook with like, this is how old my grandfather is, how old I am, with like pictures of Babe Ruth in the newspaper.
Okay.
You know, Babe Ruth's from the 1920s. And that was so fucking cool to me. So I would scrapbook, I would take out the newspaper clippings and keep old Sports Illustrated. And so, you know, I got credit for that, right? So I always remember that.
I got some knowledge now.
I'll know. I was at a bar in San Francisco. Like this was like 15 years ago when I first, 18 years ago when I was in San Francisco for San Francisco State, and a friend of mine knows I know all this sports knowledge, and this guy who was probably in his 40s and I'm in my 20s at the time, and he's like drunk at the bar. He's like, "Oh, you don't know sports. I'll buy you a drink if you can tell me the 3 teams that Gary Carter played for, if you even know who Gary Carter was." And I'm like, Mets, Expos, Giants. And he's like, "What the fuck? Did you have a life as a kid? You weren't even 8 years old when Gary Carter was an all-star." And I'm like, my buddy's like, he's just like that.
I mean, if you're passionate about it and you enjoy doing it, I say do it.
I don't even know if it's just passion or just habitual. And then you get some kind of positive feedback from it, right? When you're young, like that's something that you're known to do.
That's what your family did.
Yeah.
That's what your grandpa did.
You know what? It would have been better if someone taught me stocks to use those numbers and memories better.
Grandpa, why don't you get me on
when
stocks?
I was like 11 or 12, I was fascinated by stocks, but no one in the family was really into them. So it was kind of like my dad was like, "Oh, you got a little bit of money from, my parents would take your birthday money. Like if you got birthday money, I never got that, whatever it was, $80 or $20 or whatever. And they would just put it in like a
bond or something.
Yeah. And I was like, "Can we put that in stocks?"
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because a lot of the people I watch on YouTube, like especially about hockey, you see the way they regurgitate stats, and it's not even they have it written down, it's in their head. They have all that information. Those people would be absolutely amazing as stock market brokers if they just change careers.
Right.
That's what I mean.
If you just
like Ray Dalio. It's so interesting. Like Ray's been interviewed. I'm not a huge fan, but he's
YouTube.
He's just one of those guys who's got the biggest
financial.
I've heard 10 different people have the biggest hedge fund. I don't know who has the biggest hedge fund, but he's got one.
Okay.
And he's a financial guru. He's got way too much money and still making more. But he was like, "Oh, when I was 11 years old, I worked at the local golf course. And in the 80s, stocks were really big." That's how he got into it.
Caddying or doing something like that?
He worked at a golf course, and all the business people that were there talked about stocks. One guy took him underneath his arm. He started, trading, and that's how he got into it. Same thing with like Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins said when he was in high school, he was kind of dorky, he was this, but in public speaking, he was really good. And the teacher pulled him to the side and was like, "You're really good at this. Like, you could be special at public speaking." And then he also had his mom dated. This is how good my memory is, Clutch. I don't have this written down either.
I'm amazed. I'm absolutely amazed.
Dude, you know, it's funny. I don't remember passwords though. I was just telling someone this, but getting back to it, when he was like 18, his mom was dating a new guy and the guy went to a Jim Rohn thing, which is kind of what Tony Robbins is, like what would you call Jim Rohn? I don't know.
Life coach? Or?
No, he's not a life coach. They used to. It's one of those things where they're trying to motivate you to be better and stuff, like what Tony Robbins does, like a motivational speaker, I guess. Okay. And so he went to the Jim Rohn thing, and then he just asked Jim Rohn, like, "Can I work with you?"
Straight up.
18. Another big one, how people get their, like, if you look at people's histories, a lot of them grew up in LA. Tony Robbins grew up in LA. He wouldn't have been Tony Robbins if he went to Nebraska high school. No offense to
Nebraska.
You're
almost in that culture, like a
performance
culture.
Yeah, you meet all the people in the area and stuff like that. Charles Bukowski, a lot of these people. All right, I'm sorry, Clutch. I invite you on and I just freeze you out with just
I really am not offended by it. I'm actually enjoying the conversation, if I'm being completely honest.
All right, so because I did want to talk to you about this. Attachment theory, which is a theory, not a fact. We can agree on that.
You want to emphasize that a little more, Mac?
Yes, because people right now on the internet, it's like facts. No, nothing's a fact unless it's on a calculator usually or on a camera. But the thing is like, because when they come with it, they don't come with any nuance. It's like, oh, they're avoidant, they're this with the breakup. Now, what I do think it is maybe a little bit more useful for sometimes is going back to the breakup part. You're clouded because you're hurt. So you're going to want to put them in the most negative attachment theory space there is for some people. So you're going to be a little clouded by that. Right. But maybe when you're dating or when you're starting to get to know someone 6 months to a year, and that kind of incubation process where people are like, I don't know what happened after 3 months. Well, you didn't really know them that well.
Surface level, like pretty much.
Yeah, you get surprised by people, right? So, I would say that when you're dating, do you think that it's something that you identify right away and know how to react to that, Clutch?
Are you aware of the term regressing?
The definition of regressing, or the regressing in a relationship?
The definition of what? Regressing. It can be in a relationship, but it's usually interpersonal. So what usually ends up happening is people can act, I say, relatively secure, especially early on in a relationship when you're still in the honeymoon phase and you can still have a high element of attraction and you want to spend every waking moment with this person. But eventually, through the series of time, people will start showing their true colors. And it's going to come as small things. It's going to come in the form of, I need some space. I want some independence. I'm going to go hang out with my friends. I'm going to do this or that. And there's some emotional disagreement on the allocation of time. And that's usually when these attachment styles tend to show themselves. These are the trauma points, because the moment that you're dealt with any kind of rejection, no matter how small, you usually regress back to the moment that you first felt that expression or felt that emotion. And it's kind of funny that you mentioned the whole statistics thing, especially when it comes to sports, because I immediately was thinking about this. I'm like, oh, I was going to make this point. And the point is, you were rewarded as a child when you talked about sports. So your need to want to go back and relive that through your obsession of statistics is only natural. You're naturally trying to relive that positive moment. And it's the same thing with relationships. We naturally try to replicate what our good moments are. And if we have grown up in a very broken home, then it's very easy for us to try to replicate certain aspects of ourselves or aspects in other people that isn't necessarily healthy. So what ends up happening over time, and your question initially when you asked, do two avoidants date each other? Well, avoidance can have attraction to one another, but the problem is for every reaction, you have an equal and opposite reaction from the opposite side. So if you want to keep that relationship together, it's like taking a magnet and putting the two south poles together. You're going to have a constant force pushing back on you. And if you don't maintain that pressure and that consistency, it's very easy to repel. That's why avoidance don't tend to last very long.
What's an example of that, keeping that tension, as you say?
Really trying hard and hammering it through logically rather than being driven by emotion. Especially when it comes to, not to stereotype, the avoidance on the male side versus the female side is actually handled very differently. And
okay,
from a male's perspective, avoidance has to do more with interdependence and self-dependency, versus a woman's side, it tends to be more emphasized around the notion of having emotional security and emotional confidence. So if you're caught in a situation where you have two avoidants that are dating each other that usually share these attributes, you have a push-pull dynamic where the man is usually trying to insert dominance by being passive and being dismissive, while the female tends to try to insert her dominance by trying to be emotionally secure. And the problem there is that over time, as you start hammering out these issues, such as, my need for independence or my need for security or my need for reassurances, which even avoidance have them or need them, you eventually hit a road where you can't necessarily agree on what the best notion of the relationship is going forward. And because they're so sensitive to criticism, it's almost never works out, just because you need to have emotional vulnerability to be even able to analyze such a situation like that. And if you aren't dealing with a partner that can help you in that, it's doomed for failure.
And the avoidant with anxious,
that's a that's a can of worms. It's and I've been in that situation. I've been the anxious person in that situation. The problem there is that usually you have to look into what causes the psyche of an anxious and avoidant person. So usually it's one and the same, which is it's some form of abandonment as a child. The anxious person is actively trying to gain the affection of the parent, and they do this by people pleasing. They do this by being the perfect child. They do this by being emotionally available to the parent. Versus the avoidant deals with their trauma and their abandonment by completely excluding themselves, by isolating themselves emotionally. And what you get when you put the two people together is they're effectively dating the parts of themselves that they've neglected. So that's why it's so addictive to be in that kind of relationship, because eventually when you hammer down and are intimate with the other person, it's like you're actually fulfilling that part of yourself that you never developed. And that's what really people are trying to strive for. They're trying to strive for that security. Now, given that security, there's ways of doing it, and it shouldn't be through another person. But tell that to someone who hasn't really taken the time to emotionally mature.
And then are there ones that, okay, so this is what confused me when I first came across attachment theory that I think threw me off. So I think the article or write-up that I read in a book, I think, because this, let's agree, people have sliced this up into their own way, right? Like not everyone's writing the same meanings for attachment theory. Because to me, I've seen 4 boxes. I've seen different things for their terms. So there's a avoidant disruptive or avoidant dismissive, right? So like they add some other part to it, and then it gets kind of complicated to me, where it's like, all right, so like we're going to attach another term to another term to another term, and then it gets thrown off. And I found that I felt like when I was looking at it, and I'm looking at it for myself, I'm like, oh, this is very situational, because I don't feel like I'm one thing in every moment. If you feel like you look at attachment theory and you feel like it's situational, what would you say to that?
I say to a certain extent, you're right. The other part and the aspect that I've known you for as long as I've known you, you're incredibly secure. So the element of you not being swayed emotionally, especially during the attraction stage of the relationship, makes perfect sense. It's not saying that you can't be vulnerable. It's just you have a healthy balance and you've done the work, and it's obvious you've done the work. But for someone that's never done the work, from the person who's never gained that parental approval, putting them in a situation where all of a sudden they are getting approval and they're getting affection from someone that they look up to, at least subconsciously.
Okay.
It's essentially them trying to rewrite their childhood. And until they sit down and do the work, the dynamics on that kind of relationship can actually be rather violent emotionally. It's a constant wave of giving attention and pulling away to try to find that balance rather than trying to find that equilibrium. And you can't take someone who has emotional immaturity on their side and show them what that equilibrium is without them being vulnerable and opening up to what their scars happen to be and to do the work. It takes time.
And would you say that can you identify someone right away and then realize, oh, I got it wrong?
Absolutely. This is where we start getting into the real theoretical part of it, because you and I have spoken about this. I take this with a grain of salt. As much as I preach it, it's good for understanding what our dynamics is post breakup. And the number one thing I usually tell people is don't try to diagnose your ex after a breakup, because you're so emotionally deregulated that, yeah, you're going to vilify them. You're going to call them whatever suits the narrative that you've written in your head. Instead, what I tell people is you have to look internally and you have to see what attachment style are you expressing right now when you're emotionally vulnerable. And if it's a case where you have that good understanding of where you're coming from, where they come from, and what their attachment was or is just going to come naturally to you as you start healing and as you start understanding what went wrong in the relationship.
What would you say that is there a specific model of attachment theory or book that does it better justice, since there's so much out there right now? Because I feel like, especially chat GP, it's gonna be
Chat GPT. Come on, get it right.
Sorry, chat GPT. I did have a GT Interceptor as my bike.
Whatever it's on now, I don't know if it's like 15.
If you want to talk about really crazy stuff, we have to talk about AI at some point and the dangers.
About what?
AI.
About AI and the dangers that's going to cause.
For relationships?
Just in general, I think. Just in everything.
In everything, including relationships too, because in my last year of university, we were studying AI and we were studying about the ethics of what happens when you create an intelligence that is self-aware, what defines it as a person, and what does it mean for society. And the only logical conclusion you can come to is that the AI, if it's logic-based, is going to come out like a psychopath. So what's going to be the consequences of all this information and all this data that we're feeding it right now? It's really interesting stuff, and it's really scary when you think about it.
Man.
And as much as like people's lives are online now, you know, like how crazy that's going to be.
I wouldn't have brought you on if you're going to bring this up, Clutch. What is this, man? You know, this is a breakup channel. You're the art of love, and now we're getting into AI, all meanings of AI. Save the RoboCop shit, okay?
Ben's like Skynet.
No, just
from Terminator.
I think it just freaked out Mac.
A little bit, yeah.
But
I've never owned a robot, okay? No. They're not robots. They're double fakes. They're this, they're that. They're going to have, fake trees growing with eyes.
You got to call them people or whatever.
All right. You know what comes to mind to me when I think about AI, though, that was a good movie that I could see bleeding over into relationships was Her.
Yeah. That's a great movie. Like,
right? That, to me, that movie, and I don't know the future, but I was like, I could definitely see that happening.
Just like testing the waters on chat GPT of just the conversational aspect of it, you could totally see it going like down that road for sure.
Well, why I would say it, just from my seat of doing breakup coaching, relationship coaching, and talking to people about things, there's a lot of people that have online relationships with no intimacy for 2 years.
Yep.
So it's just more common than ever. And the people that do that, they actually get comfortable with it. They don't. It's like they don't push back. They actually lean into it, and then they get they'll get a new relationship with the same thing. Mm-hmm. So you're like, why are you doing this again?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't know if you ever ran into this, but how many breakups did you get? And I hope I don't trigger in our viewers. How many breakups did you get where the ex ran off with someone they met in World of Warcraft or something along those lines?
Oh no, that's your clients.
You don't get
I don't get those ones, man.
Get gamers? Come on.
I don't get too many. I get a few, but not too many. Mm-hmm. But I have had more than one that are in a Discord group. Mm-hmm. That's not, well, I guess they're video game based, not all of them. And then they do emotional cheating.
Yeah.
You know, where they start sending each other dirty messages and things like that. And there was one in particular guy years back, and he was beside himself because he was like, honestly, we never even met. We were just having fun. Mm-hmm. But he did it for like 6 months.
Oh, wow.
You know, like they would have their private chat, but she was on his Discord as, you know, Skycast girl 111, you know, whatever. Like, so he didn't even know who she was. But then they would, you know, talk about dirty things and have the thing. But guess what? He didn't clear his chat history. So when it came up and the girlfriend found it, it was like 6 months or, you know, like took her a few days to go through it. And then she was bubbling and he's like, I never met her. And, you know, I swear to God, like we were just playing. But when you think about it, if you're into video games and like fantasy and stuff,
it's almost real.
It kind of goes with your personality to, you know,
continue the fantasy kind of world.
Right. So that one I see a lot now where someone, you know, online and they start kind of an emotional cheating type thing that just keeps going and they don't meet. And then they're like in this awkward situation where their partner doesn't believe them. But I could see where they would run off, you know, or because one thing that I would stress to a lot of people, I've said it many times on the live stream, is like, you can't, I'm not going to ever tell people to tell their partner where they can and cannot work, but you should monitor that certain environments are more temptatious or more apt to cheat. Right. And so it's not, and that's something I didn't know. You know, in my 20s, I would just be like, oh, she's pretty, she's cool.
You just never account for that.
Yeah, but if she works, you know, sports analogy at a sports bar
in Vegas or something, you know,
my sports analogies, clutch. It doesn't mean she's a bad person. It's not a good environment. She's gonna get approached a lot, even if she's good and all this. She's you know, she's gonna drink more often. So those things count. So I guess the video game groups and stuff like that lead that open. So it'll be interesting though if they ever get. Is there a her out there like maybe. I'm sure it's probably gonna. Don't lie. I know you're way into AI.
I would know if there was
sex events and stuff.
It would be on the internet for sure. It would be on YouTube for sure.
Let's be honest. And all three of us men, could we honestly admit that if we didn't have Scarlett Johansson constantly talking to us, we'd not fall in love with her either as well?
She's got a great voice.
She's got a great voice. I will say.
I'm a person that appreciates voice too. I'm highly audio, obviously, with how much I talk. Yeah. So I would agree. She's got the right voice, and just
definitely.
Hey, but they can now recreate that voice, right, and have her say everything.
The deep fake stuff now, they could 100% do that.
It's kind of one of those things too that someone that could go down that route post breakup and just go, I don't want to go back to a regular person, and they would just be comforted by that, I suppose.
So prepare yourself for future clients that say, hey, my girlfriend ran off with an AI or something like that.
Wasn't there a Futurama episode about that where they had dating robots and they had Futurama?
Futurama. Yeah, I'm sure.
What's Futurama?
It's a cartoon. Same people that did The Simpsons. Same guy, I think, that did The Simpsons. But yeah, it's Futurama.
I still can't figure out how Bart hasn't aged.
There's a big conspiracy theory about that, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I know how you want to stick on top.
Hold on a sec, because I want to honor the chat. Titanic, Chadarone. I don't even know how to say that. How can we deal with difficult family members that don't love us for us? That's a great question. I'd ask you, how old are you? Just for a reference. I would say this, that specifically, where are you seeing that? And are you still living at home with your family? And what are the things that they're not loving you just for you? Like, is it a specific thing?
25.
Wow, that came through to you before me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 25. Are you living at home still? And then if you don't mind mentioning, like, what's a specific example of how they don't love us for us? One thing that I would tell you, and I'm not going to say that this is going to make it all better or anything like that. Your parents had a totally different childhood, a string of events that made them who they are. Doesn't mean I'm saying that they're great people or bad people. It's just that you didn't live their same life and how they were programmed and what they go on and what they do. So the way that they impose what they think is right or wrong is not necessarily something that you're going to be able to reason or logic with, because you just didn't live their same exact life. I find, this is a personal anecdote in my own life, that some of the issues you have with parents, and I didn't have this specific issue, as you get older and you start living your own life and you get out there and you take your lumps. And when I say you live your own life, this isn't someone going, find your purpose, be an entrepreneur.
You're just out in the world.
Make fucking $10 million. Be happy. I'm not saying that. I'm actually going to tell you, when you start taking your own lumps or have some bad moments, or, live a really life where you're an adult, you start to realize, hey, maybe where my parents were coming from, they were stressed out. They were in a bad place. I'll never forget Larry Elder, who ran for governor. You know who that is, B?
Yeah, African American.
Yeah. He's got his own show, and this isn't a political thing, but he was interviewed, and I remember this really touched me. And he said he had a horrible relationship with his dad. Mm-hmm. And he said his dad was like always in a bad mood, always really hard on him. He's like, was just pissed off all the time, and really had trouble with his dad. Said his dad would not necessarily like beat him or anything like that, but just hard on him. He had some anecdotal story about Christmas where he kicked his gift, and right, he just never had a good relationship. He couldn't figure out why was dad so mean and angry all the time. So he said when he got older, he's old school, so he went military, then he went to college, he became a lawyer, he had his own life, but he always had this resentment towards his dad, right? And he said he finally, sat down with his dad. I'm like late 40s, early 50s, and had, coffee and ate. And his dad had a restaurant in LA, and he had this restaurant for years. And so he sat down with his dad and he's like, why were you like that? Why were you so angry? Why were you such an asshole? Why did you, kick my Christmas gift down the stairs? Why did, and his dad goes, when I first came to LA, I worked 3 jobs, one as a janitor, one as a gas station attendant, and he goes, I saved up all that money for this restaurant. And then when I started this restaurant, I got up at 4 a.m. and I got out of here at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. I had no patience left.
He was just done.
Yeah. He's like, I was tired. I was in a bad mood all the time. I was always trying to make my rent. And Larry felt like at that age,
you can't even visualize that.
He, in other words, like, he got a different perspective, especially when being older. Now, if that story was told to him when he was 18, he'd probably be like, oh, whatever, dad. But when he was older and he took some, bad times, I'm not saying that applies to your situation, because it could be, but your parents and where they're coming from, the reason why you have so much trouble with it is because you came up differently. You have different stories and programs. But at some point, you got to look at too, a lot of people don't just like you for being you. They like you for small, reasons. There's a guy that Gestalt therapy, Fritz Perls. He would say that no one loves a person completely. He said people love parts of people. I don't know if that's exactly true, But if you look at, you work with people and you have favorites, you have certain people you like, different things like that. I would have to ask you a little bit more questions of why you feel that way and what the specific problems are. But as you get older, don't take it personal and don't make it something that you do. Currently not living with them, it's like I don't live up to their perfect perception of who or how I think they think I should be, as if I just didn't fit the bill to be a part of the family. Love doesn't need need a reason, does it? No.
But like you say, everybody's definition of what love is different.
Are you sure they don't love you, but they just don't convey it well? You want to respond to this, Clutch?
So I have a little biased on it. You
Sure.
know my situation, Mac.
I do.
So for most people on the live stream, I've been estranged from my family for about 10 years now. What Mac doesn't know is I found out my sister moved to Los Angeles 6 months ago, and her and I actually grabbed lunch a few months ago. So it's the first time I've seen her in probably about 7 years.
Oh, wow.
But with that being said, I can empathize with the story a fair bit. And I'm with Mac. I can't really give a perception of what the situation is without hearing more detail. But what I will say is this. Regardless of what people's intentions are or where they're coming from, what you have to pay attention to the most is the outcome emotionally. If you are feeling neglected, if you're feeling unloved, if you're feeling unworthy, you need to ask yourself a question of, is this internal or is this coming from them? And the easiest way to do that is to take a break, to say, I'm going to handle myself on my own. I'm going to see how I feel. And if in 6 months' time you feel the same, we know where the problem is. If you don't feel the same, then you need to start looking at the dynamics of that relationship and whether or not you want to maintain that relationship. Not saying that you should cut contact or do anything like that. It's up to you to decide on what direction you want to head in. But the only way you can do that rationally is by taking that break and reflecting.
And 25 is a good age to do, you know, and I'm not saying, because like I said, I know there's some areas that are expensive and people stay at home longer. I have talked to guys that are like 25, 26, they're living at home and they got great relationships with their families, but they're not growing up.
They're just keeping the same.
I got 50 grand in the bank. I got my room. I go to Eagles games on the weekends. I'm like, wait. Your girlfriend broke up with you because one of the reasons is she didn't like walking by your parents into your bedroom to bang. Like, do you want to get your own place, dude? You're 26. You got a good job. Nah, I got that money in the bank. Like, that's not your situation. But here's the interesting thing, dude. You not being happy with them, and I know it's deeper for you because you feel like they don't love you. But you also need to get out there and get away and establish your own mark and figure out, like what he said earlier, maybe you don't feel as strongly as about that. When I was 18 or 19, my dad started charging me rent for my room. I know people that are like, your dad would charge you rent for your room? I moved out in 2 months. It was good for me. Never moved back. It made me grow up. Sometimes the shit that you're upset about now, or the perfection that they have, perfect perception of who they think you should be. A lot of people I know that have parents like that, they end up pretty successful because they're driven by that. They're more ambitious to fulfill that. On the flip side, they have more anxiety, right? So it's tough. But I would say that if you're out on your own right now, get therapy or a coach and comb through it and get the perspective, because it's not that simple that how can I deal with difficulty of members of that family that don't love us for us? And you said us, so maybe your other siblings. Strain through that. Spend some time with myself or another coach or therapist out there. And if you don't like the coach or therapist, get a different one and go to work on it and figure out what parts of that can you deal with and accept, and what parts can't you accept, and what parts are you going to work on so you're not like that yourself. But get tailored advice. Get tailored advice because your situation's unique, and allow yourself that over time, your feelings can change with your own personal experiences. So I know in my own life, I've talked about it before. My sister passed away about 3-4 years ago. I didn't have a great relationship before that happened. I won't go into detail about that, but we had good relationship. It's not as like what you were mentioning, Clutch, about 10 years, but the last few years are bad. Guess what? When you lose someone, all that feeling goes, you forgive them. It's different. It changes you. And so at 25 years old right now, I just wonder why they were like that to me, but not my brother they raised. Like I said, we'd have to talk in a session, but I've unpacked that with other clients before. And getting to a point where you can talk about it with someone that's not your parents to try to change who they are. And I would say at the base of that, they were raised different. People that have ill personalities or have these problems or treat their kids in a certain way, they learn that somewhere. I'm not telling you to get them off the hook, but it's not just that they don't like you or don't love you. Someone probably did the same thing to them. At some point, when you can get some empathy, compassion, or just understanding of where that came from, it might loosen that up for you. Maybe you're not ready for that either, if that makes sense. But definitely, if this is something in 25, I think Clutch would agree. You realizing that this is a problem, sharing it on a live stream like this. All right, let me get to work on this. This is not something you're going to come away with, oh, let me be happy. But you can get some kind of meaning or understanding that's a little bit better, so you're okay with it, right? Like, my dad was an asshole when I was young. He was fucking mean.
I'll take it a step further, Mac. If he's only 25 and he does the therapy and he does the work, by the time he hits his stride, which will probably be later 20s, early 30s, he's going to be absolutely irresistible. Like, if you handle that mental game and handle it well, it's incredibly attractive.
And put yourself around, like, be mindful of the people you're putting yourself around. So one thing I will say, going back to my dad, just to put it out there, I have a good relationship now, but I understood now. My dad was driving a truck 50, 60 hours a week. He was tired. He was in a job he didn't like. And he did it to pay the bills. So that's my reason to be okay with it. Mm-hmm. When I was a little kid, when you're a kid, you can't leave. Mm-hmm. You can't change the situation. You're 25 right now. Get out there.
It's kind of like
make your mark.
Larry Elder you said before. You know,
exactly.
Same thing. So that's
exactly my point. Yeah. But what Clutch just said, if you have the extra money, invest in a coach or a therapist and go like, I'm going to work on this. And then that way, because you just need to find the meaning. Mm-hmm. After I realized, well, dad was working his ass off. He was doing the best he can in that moment. I don't hold that as much. But when you get to a certain age, and I had a bad thing happen in my early 30s with my parents, and my dad had a relapse on alcohol. I was pissed. But I remember this moment, dude. I was like 31 or something like that, right? And I'm tense. I got anxiety. I felt like I was when I was a kid and my parents would fight.
Same thing.
I felt like, and I was 30. Mm-hmm. I was like, fuck. And I go, you know what's fucking difference? I can fucking leave. I can go live my life on my own. Like, I don't have to stick around. I don't have to be around for this. And so I'm not saying to no contact your family. I'm saying that you have more options when you get older to get your own therapy, to get out there, to work hard, to have your own place, and to be mindful that you don't want to be that in the future. Mm-hmm. The idea that they treat your brother better is something that you need to go to work on, because that's going to bother you for a long time. And I'm not saying it's not true, because I'm dealing with clients. It's in a lot of families. You're not alone about that. A lot of parents have favorites. A lot of them do. And if you're not the favorite, it's tough. So the reason I'm telling you that, you're not the only one. That's more common. But sometimes the parent's favorite, you'll be surprised. They actually still love you, maybe in a different way or something like that. Or they convey things in a different way. But like I said, I'm going all over the place here. But if you booked a session, we can talk about it deeper.
Could narrow it down.
Yeah, no, it's important for you to share all the stuff, like everything that's bothering you. Get it out of you. And if you, like I said, sometimes when you're dealing with it, you might have tried to go to your parents about this. That'll probably make it worse. Like, you always do things for the brother, always, and then they're going to defend themselves. But Clutch is right. This is a great time to be aware of it and be like, this is bothering me. I don't want this to be like this for so long. So it's just that if I was an ex-partner, I would have got over it a long time ago. But when it's family, it's a different. Yeah,
sure.
But you can't change your family.
Yeah.
Clutch knows that too.
I know that well.
Yeah, but the best thing you could, like, there was a guy I knew when I was back in California who was at my gym, and his dad's a bad alcoholic. He's like 29 years old, really good guy. He was going to school. He still lived at home. And he told me that, and he didn't talk about his dad a whole lot or anything like that. He doesn't drink. And he said the cops called him, and his dad was in the parking lot at a liquor store, so drunk and inebriated that they were like, can you pick him up? We don't want to give him a DUI, and he shouldn't drive. Right. And he was like, I told him, just leave him there. Like, he's so detached from
that he didn't even.
And he still lives at home, right?
Wow.
So he's still connected with his parents. Family dynamics are not unique to you. They're tough. I think it's tough now too, because, you know, everyone's getting a lot of morals and values from the internet. So you're not, you know what I mean, Clutch? You got someone like Andrew Tate, where someone's like, have a sports car, a cigar, some tattoos. That's what everyone wants, right? And then you'll be happy.
The problem is, I usually tell people, seek advice from people living the life that you want to live. Someone like Andrew Tate, who's like surrounded by money, women, and cars. There's a lot of people aiming for that, and it's not emotionally stable. It's not emotionally regulated. You have to be very careful.
Yeah,
for most people, yeah.
And it's, I would tell you though, like Titanic, like, it's part of kind of the human journey to deal with these things. So like when you go, like, I think Clutch has been around the block long enough too. Have you ever met people that had it made since they were young? Money, nanny, you know, private school, all these things that everyone would think they would aspire for. And they're fucked up when they're older. Mm-hmm. They're fucking complaining about everything. They're rude to people. They had no you know, and they're like, well, actually, I remember when I was, you know, 15 and my mom hit me. Was that the only time? Oh yeah. Actually, where'd she hit you? She just hit me on the arm. Cause I was, you know, like, they don't, that like some of these people that you think have it so great, because they haven't had any problems or issues, when they get out in the real world, they'll just complain, they whine about petty things. What you're going through right now is a human problem, dude. You're not the only one, and you'll be able to get through it, and it's going to take some time. And the fact that you feel this way and you know how you feel is half your battle. It's half your battle. Just being able to accept, like, hey, man, I don't like this. Now, don't try to reason with your parents and try to talk them out of acting this way. Talk to someone that's professional. It's going to help you as an individual. And that's the difference. And I would say that the biggest thing is, make sure you, when you choose someone, I think Clutch said when you got therapy for the first time, you went through a lot of therapists.
17.
Didn't you say you went? Huh?
17.
It's not a competition. Come on, seriously. You don't get therapy points here. Come on, man. 17? No. I would say that that's a good thing. If you could, you know, because I think people settle for someone now through insurance. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times they're like, no, it didn't work, or I didn't like them, or they said something disarming. So just make sure you're picky about it, and make it a point that you're like, I got to do this, and it'll help you. Because when you start unlocking that bitterness or resentment of family, and you loosen up the clogged sink, everything else starts to get better. Like, you start to make decisions better. And you start to realize, like, I can deal with my problems, because problems are always going to be there.
Also, make sure that you go with someone that challenges you as well. Too many people will settle with a therapist that just strokes an ego. And that's no good either. You have to find a good balance of someone that can make you feel safe, but can also express feedback that you're going to be receptive to. And that's really the key factor. If you're not receptive to it, there's no point.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. I never raised by them. I was raised by my narcissist dad instead and had a bit of a crappy upbringing. Well, join the club, bro. Recovering, you know, and you know what's therapeutic doing the work I do? Man, I've heard some stories. I'm like, wow, why was I ever thinking I had it bad? When people start comparing things. But the reality is your journey is your journey, and it's going to shape you in a good way. And you'll be able to be a better parent once you realize that. You'll be a better friend. And actually the way out of it sometimes is empathy and compassion of why they are the way. That's why I said that Larry Elder story.
Right.
He didn't come to that till his dad was, you know, he was old. But he probably wasn't ready for it when he was younger. Just know that you don't have to stay there too. Like, you can get out there. You could start your own life. This is what nature does. Nature doesn't have your parents stay with you for 25 years. You know, you got to get back. You got to get out there and do your thing. And then once you feel independent and you start doing things for yourself, the problems with your family, you can deal with them, but they're not in your face. When you live there, I've had multiple clients. You probably had this too, Clutch, where they're living at home. Maybe they don't have the extra money. I'm like, that's the number one thing you got to do is get out.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying, bro?
Your environment.
Like, it sounds simple, and then they'll come back like, oh, I don't have the money right now. All right. I'm not going to send it to you. I'm not that good.
Do you notice a direct correlation between the anxiety people have and whether or not they have a financial safety fund available?
That's a State Farm question, I think.
That's what I've noticed. If they don't tend to have an emergency fund, if they don't have disposable income where they can go somewhere without thinking it, that just creates a huge amount of dependency. And I find that those breakups are usually the most intense.
Oh, in regards to a breakup, yeah, absolutely. That's why a lot of people stay in marriages. I think that,
like there's no way out.
And by the way, if I'm in a coaching call with someone like that, all right, I understand where you're coming from. So, like, what's gonna get you out of that, or what are your other options? Maybe you're not seeing.
Like, let's get the wheels turning a little bit.
Because sometimes it's like you're in this bad relationship, right? I've talked about this story before. The lady married a really bad guy, and she had a 1-year-old. The guy was being abusive to their pets, and she just felt trapped. She was like, I can't call anyone. I'm like, well, who would you call if you could call someone? You know, to get out. You just need to get out and give someone the opportunity to help you out. That's a friend or family member, an aunt. And she ended up reaching out to her dad, who she hadn't talked to for a while. That was happy to hear from her. And then a friend helped her, and she didn't need just money. She just needed to get out. The guy was, bad news. And sometimes you're not seeing some of the options outside of having that. Money's absolute anxiety. I'm with you, Clutch. But maybe there's something that we can dig up that might be another resource. Maybe you can sell your collection of YSL handbags. I've had someone do that. That they were like, I guess there's a high resale on, Louis Vuitton and that stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
And she's like, I can sell a few bags because I don't have the extra money right now. I'm like, do it for your, what's your sanity worth over
some handbags? You can do
a utility bag with an emblem on it that's expensive.
Or sell their books on attachment theory.
There you go. There you go.
I mean, when you think about it, right? The human being that's stranded on an island gets fucking resourceful.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like when you start to really look at things like, all right, how am I going to get out of this? Some things start to appear. You're like, actually, I actually could do this, or I could do that. And that's when you're solution based. And sometimes when you get a coaching session or something like that, you just need one new thought that you weren't looking at. Some people, well, the best thing I always hear is like, that's actually a good idea.
You just didn't think of it.
Yeah. Like, and then I'll go, thank you. Right. You're not. And I've been in that situation. You got roadblocks up. You're like, there's nothing that can be. All right, well, let's talk about why you're in that situation now. And then what are some of the things you're not looking at that might open up? Because there's 1,000 possibilities, really, when you look at it.
Well, hell, when I was going through my last breakup, I got a roommate right after my ex and I broke up. And after about 2 months, I told him I need to get out of LA. Like I need to mentally reset and
Yeah.
And I was thinking of going back to Canada. I was like, oh, I'll probably just go back to Canada. He's like, why don't you go back to Chile? He's like, you got family there, you got connections there, and it's cheaper to live down there. And I didn't. It never crossed my mind. I never would have thought of it. Right. And it's because of that action I ended up reconnecting with my wife. So you never know where the road's going to lead when you approach people for help, and they'll give you advice that you never even thought of.
Right, and that goes back to, you know, good friend. Sounds like that's a good, you chose your roommate wise too, that, you know, he was supportive and not just going, well, who's going to pay for your room when you leave? What, you know, like, what am I going to do?
Ironically enough, I now take care of his cat, so that's
okay.
It kind of balances that at the end.
That's one of those things that when you have a bad family life, or it was really rough, and you finally do get out and you get on your feet and you get that reserve fund or whatever it is, and you start feeling like you can take care of yourself, be mindful. And I wasn't like this because I'm a friendly, sociable person. B knows, like, I have friends everywhere, all ages, and sometimes it's not good. It's not. It's one of those things that people are influencing you, whether you're strong and secure at all, by doing things and being mindful and choosing good friends, good people to be around. Once you're out of the family, when you have a choice to choose who you're around, that's going to help you grow. And if you look at, even I read the biography of Steve Martin. Comedian? I told you this, right?
Comedian, right? Is that?
Have you heard of that one? So Good They Can't Ignore You.
I have not.
I like biographies. It was good. Steve Martin's not the funniest guy to me. I think it's a little slapstick.
He is a more slapstick.
Yeah, no, it's not clever humor. Mm-hmm. But he was, you know, highly successful, made some movies.
SNL, like all that stuff, yeah.
And, you know, he grew up in like the 1950s or 1940s in LA, I think out of Orange County, so above LA. And, you know, talking about his relationship with his dad wasn't like so bad, but it wasn't great. And his dad wasn't supportive of his career. His dad would put him down all the time. And you know what he did? He just stayed on the road. He stayed independent. He stayed depending on himself. And he said his dad was hard on him till the end. His dad was a little bit jealous of, I think, you know, how well he did. Yeah.
Stuff, yeah.
So, you know, happens to a lot of people. And the favorite thing is very common. It's very common. It's very common.
Like a favorite a kid that they have is what
just having that complex when you're older that, oh, you know, Johnny always got the best bike and this, you know, so-and-so. It's timing sometimes too. You know, the baby in the family might get more attention because the parents are more financially able to do that. I don't know. Or the kid looks more like their favorite grandfather. You know, there's all kinds of reasons. It's not that it's right, but you can get through that.
Well, even how parents view their first kid, just like raising a new kid that they've never, you know, their new parents or whatever, and then they have a second kid, is going to be different, you know, or a third kid.
Well, that's why I always say that when people take on step kids. Have you dated a woman that had kids before, Clutch?
Twice.
Okay. And would you, like, this is one of those things. I haven't had a girlfriend that had kids. I've dated a few women that have had kids briefly, but the thing about it is I always say, like, you don't have that built-in love, so you kind of have to like them, like their personality, their personality. Because I've had friends that they didn't like the kid's personality and they're always making fun of them, and I'm like, dude, that's her son. You know what I mean? Yeah, but he's annoying, man. He's fucking 7, bro.
Right. There's a kid.
He's like, yeah, right when I get up from the couch, he just takes my spot with my girl. Like, what's that? I'm like, fucking 7, dude. You know, like,
he wants to be next to his mom.
Yeah. But I mean, his kids, when he started having kids, you know, he's cuddling with his, you know, it's his kid. And so people are different with that, you know, that having that built in. Would you agree when you've dated women like that?
I mean, again, I'm biased because I grew up with a stepfather who was actually really good to me. So for me, like I always embraced that role. With that being said, the women I dated that had children were also very careful about introducing me to the children before we were established. So in a sense, we didn't last very long, so I didn't get to bond with the children very deeply. But I can also understand from a mental standpoint that yeah, you have to definitely take it carefully and tread lightly.
I think one of the difficult ones is just the reprimanding.
Yeah, because it's like, how far do
when
I
it's
go?
not your kid. Yeah.
How hard can I be here?
A comment just came on an old video that I had that like the guy was like, I wanted to be the stepdad or there, but I couldn't tell the kid when they did wrong, and then it's a tricky situation.
Sure, you don't want to cause a fight with your girlfriend.
Well, not only that, being a teacher for years and seeing kids at different ages, like and their growth. That 12 to like 14 mark, we've all been there, but we don't remember what little jerks we were.
Sure.
Maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but 11 to like 13 or 14, like, you think you're a know-it-all kind of, I don't know. And if you take on little Johnny and it's your girlfriend's kid and you met him at 7 and now he's 13 and he's, not the same. Right, it's gonna be difficult. It's a lot. A lot of people deal with that. It's part of life. Would you say that we could? What's the earliest age to give someone an attachment?
6 months.
Huh?
6 months.
6 months? What do you?
Or time? I think you're saying time period. What, like you're saying age wise, right?
Yeah, age. Usually by 6 months. So,
wow. So you could meet a 6-month-old baby and you're like avoidant.
Not necessarily, but the attachment's already been instilled in them. It all depends.
Really?
Yeah, it all depends on the upbringing. It all depends on the kind of attention they're getting from mom and dad.
A baby.
As a baby, yeah. So it's not going to be something they'll be able to communicate, but it's definitely something that's already molded by the time they're 1.
Like, are they being held when they want to be held? That kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. If they're being too smothered, they're probably going to come out anxious. If they're being too neglected, they're probably going to come out dismissive. It all depends on what the balancing act is. And the irony is that when new parents come into the game, they're usually overly cautious. So there seems to be some dynamic between the more kids you have, the better suited you are to building some kind of stability, at least when it comes to the rearing aspect of things.
Right, that first kid, you're like, what do I do here? Like, what am I going?
I found it interesting. I was listening to this interview with that Andrew Bustamante, CIA agent, who I like listening to his stuff.
Yeah, you've
I don't know if he's even a real CIA agent, actually, because like, how can you share so much, right?
Right.
But on the flip side,
that does make sense. Like, how are you sharing all this stuff?
Well, maybe he's still an agent too, right?
Maybe he's manipulating something.
All right. So Tom Ballou, if I said his name right, he's interviewing him, and he's like, "Oh man, me and my wife," because this guy interviews people and he always brings it back to like, I'm an entrepreneur, I made billions of dollars. Like he always comes back to this, and it's like, oh god. And he also does, being an entrepreneur is like being in war. It's like, not really, dude. I don't think people in war would say that. But he mentioned to the guy who has 2 kids, he's like, me and my wife decided not to have kids because there's a big correlation that kids that grow up with trauma actually end up more successful. Think about that for a minute.
I mean, I got into that same argument with my sister when I saw her last time, because part of the dynamics of us seeing to get each other were her talking about my career and my career development. She's like, "Oh, you come from our family is strong." And I looked at her, I'm like, don't take responsibility for my actions. Like, just because we're related to one another doesn't mean I have to be thankful for you. This is part of who I am and who I've developed over time.
And I just thought it was interesting that he would relate it like he was going to raise some junior hardcore entrepreneur. But it's like, dude, don't cop out on having kids when you have money to raise kids, right? Because that's a big one right now, is having enough finances to be confident that you're not going to raise them, because you're not going to create any trauma. So then the kid therefore won't be as successful. I thought that was a twisted statement, because I could see how hardships and problems and different things they have to overcome. But I've known friends that, dare I say, have really good environments in their family, really well supported, and they came out really well.
Mhm.
Like they, you know what I mean?
So-
Yeah, I wouldn't say that that's completely accurate. There's obviously entrepreneurs or people that make money, and this is the problem right now. What are we measuring here? Good humans or entrepreneurs that are millionaires? There's a fucking difference. You could be a good human and an entrepreneur, but you also don't need to be. They're not exclusive.
Right.
This is where like that kind of like, I'm not going to have kids because he's going to have trouble being successful because he won't have as many traumas with me. What?
That's pretty. It's pretty egoistic.
Is it?
Yeah.
Maybe, you know what I mean? Don't sell yourself short. Maybe the kid wouldn't like being around you because you're, you know, all you talk about is money and shit. I don't know.
I mean, to each his own, but the problem is, and I've dated women who don't want kids. There's nothing wrong with wanting kids, but if the reason you're giving it is because, oh, the kid's not going to come out successful enough because I'm too good at my job, like the level of
Pretty fucked
That's what
up.
I'm saying.
Pretty fucked up.
When he said that the other guy has
What's he
two
like?
kids, I was like, oh, that's your reason, dude? Like, wow.
All right.
All right. You know, like I would look at it like if you have all that money, you have more ability to put your kid in a position to do well and be good and go to retreats and, you know, go to good schools or whatever it is. But I think it's a cop out to say that I don't really want to spend my time. I don't want to spend my time, but who knows? I don't know.
So like between this interview you saw, I'm assuming on YouTube, did like the ad that popped up halfway through the video be for a prescription of Viagra? Because it would actually make sense.
Say that again.
If you're watching this video on YouTube, was the ad that came up during the interview up for a bottle of Viagra? Because that would make more sense. Maybe he isn't able to have kids, so he's just saying, "Oh, I'd be too good for it."
Seriously. I don't know, man. Like I said, when you hear something like that and you're like, yeah, like you said, everyone teach their own, everyone's different. It's just interesting how people build their cases, right?
Yep.
Say you don't want to have kids. All right, fine. Oh, because they wouldn't have a trauma with me. They're not going to be as successful. So that really bothers me. What? I don't know. I mean, okay, if you want to frame it that way, go ahead, but it doesn't sound good.
I mean,
what a badass.
Do you imagine Andrew Tate trying to rear a child?
I'm starting to think, Clutch, that he's just playing a character.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't think I'm starting to think like WWF wrestling. I've talked about this before. He's playing a character. I mean, it struck me, and I don't follow him that closely or anything, but he blew up. He was all over the place, and people are like, he's a real kickboxer. People are trying to figure out, oh yeah, he's a real kickboxer. Okay, he's got some credibility, right? Like he's also been on reality TV, him and his brother, which is acting. Okay. It's like, it's fake reality, which a lot of YouTube is now.
Yep.
Not me.
You and I have had conversations about this.
You're a real person, I know.
Thanks. But I'm just saying, like, right now, when he came out of that jail and now he's Muslim, which is completely fine with me. Got a lot of friends that are Muslim. I live in a Muslim village in the area I live in. Got a mosque 100 yards from my house. Totally fine with that. So no judgment on that at all. But when he was interviewed about his reasons, I heard briefly, it was kind of strange, but I felt like I was almost watching that movie where
like he's building an arc and
an arc to the story. Good way to put it. Like, and then he has a new look to go with it. Like the long beard, you know, and coming out of jail. And it just felt like, is this your agent telling you to do these different random things to get attention? I don't know. Like I said, I'm starting to feel like guys like him, they're a brand, and they're selling.
He's selling stuff. Like
exactly.
He's got university stuff or whatever he calls
it. Exactly.
So.
And then you got people that have big audiences that are, well, he makes sense. Well, he does this. Yeah, he does. You know, but he's trying to sell shit, right? Like he's trying to sell the hustler's course, and with the hustler's course and these kinds of things, these aren't better human beings. These are, you know, talk about narcissism. So like, here's your junior narcissism starter kit. You know, like it's, I don't know. I don't think it's a good thing that people believe that this is really who they are.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's, like I said, it's a full-time act, like a wrestler, like a Hulk Hogan,
or anybody like that. Yeah.
Like, oh, I think Brad Pitt's great. You don't know Brad Pitt.
You don't know what they're like.
Well, let's put it this way: how much money would it take you to change your entire identity like that? Like, it takes a very special kind of person to want to do that.
I think sometimes it's not the initial plan. Sometimes people just get, I'm not saying that about him, but like there's plenty of Hollywood actors that are like, oh my God, I wouldn't want this again. Or I heard Tim Ferriss interviewed recently, like he's not ultra famous, but he's famous. And he's like, you're not prepared for how much it sucks, how much it's like hard on your life that you can't, he was saying like, I can't go to a cohabit space and do some work without getting 20 handshakes. And he's like, I'm flattered, but so it's kind of careful what you wish for, I guess. Sure. On those notes, and I don't know, kind of going off on tangent, but it's just
yeah. What were we talking about attachment styles at one point?
No, it's just like I said, it's like all of a sudden this guy goes from smoking cigars, he's got no shirt on, and then he goes to jail, and now he's a Muslim. It's like, huh? Now he's got 3 wives, and he's like, that was quick. It sounds like a movie. I mean, it sounds like, like you said, the arc and the changes and the
like it's scripted, like he's got this already planned, and
that's okay. That's fine. But unfortunately, people are like, oh no, this is really how it is. It's like, no, wrestling's fake. It's not real. The WWF, they're
not really like that in real life.
My brother hung out with Billy Bob Thornton. He hates what Hollywood stands for and the way it changed him.
Billy Bob, yeah.
Well, this is what I would recommend. This is what I always think about. I always think about, why don't you just make your money and move to Thailand? Why don't you just live on an island or live in a place like Chile or Argentina and just get away?
Nice throw out, thanks.
Seems like a nice place.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's just
you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I haven't been there. I've met some people that are from there. A lot of them used to go to Tahoe because they're snowboarders and skiers.
It's one of my favorite. I love that place.
But just move, like take your money and move, get away.
I mean, that's the call of success, right? Like when you're used to making that kind of money, I'm sure it's super addictive. So
you just gotta keep adding.
But you don't realize that you're in this wheel of making money to buy material items that don't mean that much over time. And like I've witnessed it from like the sidelines of certain friends that do it, and you're I'll be honest, a little bit jealous, like, oh, if I had that money, and but on the flip side, you're like, wouldn't buy the 8 cars, wouldn't buy the, so then it becomes like, what would you get?
Right.
Well, it's like putting a target on your back, right? Like there's better ways to utilize your time and money than to limit in excess of that amount.
Well, what you're doing is you're just you're letting the commercials and good marketing influence what you think's gonna make you happy. But the reality is, you gotta find your passion and your purpose.
Well, like I just reinstalled Instagram. I think I started following you, Mac, again.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. But like one of these stories I was randomly swiping by the other day talked about here at LAX how there's a secret lounge that only VIPs get access to. And I look at all these perfect videos of these people living a perfect life, and I'm like, oh, I'm curious about this. I want to see how much it is. It's $5,000 a person. $5,000 a person. That's worth more than the flight. And these people go through that kind of VIP treatment. I personally could never do it. Never.
Well, you're Canadian. You guys are cheap anyways.
I appreciate that.
Later, guys. Later.
Oh man. Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny those things that someone might spend money on, and they're like, oh yeah, no, it's worth it. It's this, it's that. You're gonna have to get the gate key from upstairs.
That's the first time I've seen him on camera. Well, partially.
Oh, did you catch him?
Yeah, we caught like 3 seconds of him.
It's mostly dude still makes moves. Ben, did you have a topic that you want to bring up today? Well, I was just gonna wait till the 2-hour mark for you. I know you sent me an email. Is this last crowd? Your question was, the last woman I was seeing has one of my streaming services. I know she still uses it. When you say streaming services, you mean like Amazon, like one of those? I'm just asking because you're on right now. Should I take her off or just not care? It doesn't matter. It doesn't bother me, but not getting over someone, maybe I should. I would just say this because this is actually a question that's come up. Okay, so you're just doing it right now. The only thing to that is that if she's on your streaming services, you'll see what she's been watching. And when you see what she's watching, it'll create kind of an open loop. Well, why is she watching that? Oh, she watched something about, because I've known people that know their exes sign in for YouTube and they're like, oh, she's been watching X-Pac videos. Ha ha ha. She doesn't know I know all the videos she's watching. I think if you're really trying to move forward, you could block her if you don't really care. But if you're seeing what she's watching, and when you see what she watches, it bothers you or it gets you wondering, because like, also, is she still using it? Would be my question. So
it's almost like when those people go on a dating app and they happen to pump in their ex, and they're like, oh, I saw my ex on Tinder or Bumble. It's like, why were you on there? Like, you're clearly not ready.
I've never had that happen, but that would suck. I know that. I mean, yeah, it's Disney, and I looked a few weeks ago, but I don't really care now. I mean, if it doesn't bother you and you don't really care, fine. I think for you, because I've talked to you before, I think you could honestly say that. I think that when someone gets deeper and deeper in a bad breakup, they start clinging to shit to get angry about. Like it's a stage, not in the beginning usually. You know, like maybe a few months down, they start to get a little angry. They're like, and she's got my fucking Disney pass. She's been using it for 3 months. I pay for that. If you don't feel that, it's fine. And Disney, there's probably not anything that she's going to watch that's going to make you feel like, well, maybe she watched, Cinderella and was thinking about me. It's like, if it's not bothering you too much, then fine. But if something comes up and it does bother you, then I would say delete. Why are you, if you don't really care, then I would say that it's fine. But so many people, you probably hear this too, Clutch. How many people have access to like people's passwords or codes? And they're like, my partner doesn't know, but I've known for a year. So they check their stuff all the time.
People really need to check their security. That's all I got to say. Because I've definitely heard some crazy stories of people saying,
oh man, hey. Like I would say that, 2023, it's the biggest thing is that the emotional cheating thing and just seeing things on text, and people can't let it go when it's on text. It's crystallized. So it's different. It's harder. It's one thing if someone catches someone cheating, like, and the person knew. If you have text and pictures and conversation before they got dirty, and they're like, oh, I'm going to come over right now. It's harder. I don't think I've ever had something like that directly in myself. And they just keep replaying it, like the Black Mirrors.
It's also a question of what you consider emotional cheating as well. And that's something you need to clarify.
Yeah.
Especially in a relationship. Like, I'm a natural flirt. Like when I meet anyone of the opposite sex, I will naturally just be charming and charismatic. And I don't mean anything by it. It's just part of my character. My wife understands that, and she knows fully well, like, I'm loyal to a flaw. She's my number one. That's the way it's going to be. And it's always going to be like that. And I'm also stubborn. So for me, it's almost a principle of moral more than anything else. But if you haven't had that communication with your partner and some kind of cheating happens, or what they consider cheating, it's hard to get that trust back. It's really, really hard.
And I tell clients on the other end, it's okay to not forgive yet. Like you can't if you can't forgive right now and you're upset, it's okay. Take your time. You don't have to like it, but you do need to accept that it happened. Mm-hmm. Like that's one of the ones that people have a lot of trouble with is, I can't believe it happened. I can't all right, we need to accept it happened. Like it happened. And then the next step, because, well, why are they with that person or what they did? But yeah, it's going to it will take time, and you are allowed to not want to revisit it. You're allowed to be pissed. You're allowed to, some people like feel good about that afterwards. Like you don't have to forgive them right now. It's okay. Like this is something that you need more time with, or you don't want to forgive. You can allow yourself that. But seeing like a text or pictures or video, or there's a few clients of mine that don't delete the videos that they made with their partner and they keep playing them. It's like one guy, he took like 9 months. He's like, I finally did it. I'm like, I've been telling you for like 3 months, dude.
I mean, that I'm also guilty of that. So I have a specific app on my phone where I keep pictures of exes, not like bad pictures, but just pictures that were like taken with us together and all that. And I leave them in a place where I can't access them. And I am happy to say that right before I got married, I went and I deleted all of them. But
well, there you go.
But that was like a good 20 years worth of dating material, just like completely deleted it out of my life after that. But there's nothing wrong with wanting to revisit nostalgically afterwards, as long as you can emotionally handle it, as long as you're not doing it to cope with the separation anxiety.
Yeah, if you could have a wax museum with all your exes in it, kind of like when you stuff a deer, or hey, this is
okay, now I hope you're playing a character.
You have a wax museum. Here's her picture.
Wait. What are you waxing exactly?
No. You know, wax museum, like a mannequin of who your exes were.
No, it's a joke. It's a bad.
That Black Mirror episode got in your head, Mac. That episode stuck with me. I already talked about that a long time ago about the video thing. I think that's actually a possibility, Ben. That Black Mirror episode where they record everything through their eye, like everything they do, and then they can come back to every scene they've been a part of. That's interesting. I think that's a possibility in the future, actually. I don't know when, but to recap your day every day, that'd be crazy.
Have you ever seen that Netflix movie with Clive Owen that talks about that, where they have implants in their brain that keeps memories digital?
I know who Clive Owen is. I'm not sure.
I'm trying to look up the name of the movie, but the long story short of it is the movie is about a serial killer that's going around giving people viruses in their cyber brain. And as he's supposed to play a detective, and as he's chasing this person down, she's screwing with his circuits. So he's seeing things. He's skipping frames. He's falling downstairs because there's gaps in memory where she basically screws with him.
I'll just stay away from that stuff. I didn't even like Radio Shack, Clutch.
I didn't realize you were so anti-tech.
I was before when I got it from my dad. My dad was, I remember we got an IBM computer when I was, I don't know, like one of those old IBM computers, which is just like a word processor. Like there was no apps or anything. And my dad was like, this is the future. Come here, sit down, type something. Get on here and type something, like type about your day today. And I'm like, huh? Like what? I don't want to do this. Well, go ahead, make a sentence. And it was just, he was never into them. And that was one of my first experiences. And after that, I was like, I don't want to, I'm just not that interested. Where a lot of people that are interested in them, someone introduced him to him young.
Yep.
But I've adapted.
You've adapted by talking to a microphone for 2 hours a day.
I've adapted. I'm a very fast typer. I remember in college I didn't type very fast. I was like, I remember that I would have people type my papers after I wrote them.
Oof.
I wrote the paper, but I'd be like, "Can you type this out for me?" Because my typing's so slow.
That's funny.
But
by the way,
now,
the name of the movie is Annan. By the way,
Annan.
Just the first 4 letters, Annan. But if you're into suspense movies and tech, highly recommend it.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I like Clive Owen's a good actor. I
respect him. Talk about a man that fell off the face of the earth, huh?
Did he?
Well, I can't remember the last movie he was in other than this one.
Sorry, Rye. This live just went all over the place. We had B on earlier. You missed him. And we started talking about when an ex is breadcrumbing you to come back. Went into some real breakup stories. The breadcrumbing thing's actually an interesting thing because it's opinion based. A lot of times someone wants to believe that they're breadcrumbing when actually do you want to deal with a professional breadcrumber? Do you want to play that game? Truth, pretty sure you're talking about Lawnmower Man. Oh, Lawnmower Man is a different movie?
I don't think so. I know the movie he's referring to, but no, it's not the same. Here, I'll just type it in.
You got it?
Yep.
It'll come in a minute. Oh, Anon. Okay. Yeah, I'll check that out. So you thinking it's a joke, fellas? Okay, went over my head because I...
Yeah, that went over my head too.
We'll have to get you on live. It's a joke, fellas. Are you thinking about moving back to Chile still? Is it Chile? Or I heard you say Chile, but isn't it authentically said Chile?
Chile.
Chile.
Yeah.
If you
want to say it authentically. But no, I'm going through the process of getting a green card now, so I'm going to have to stay put.
Wow, Americano, huh? Right.
A permanent resident, not American.
So you're going to be in SoCal for a while?
I think so. Well, the wife now wants kids, so you have to deal with that aspect of things. But yeah, no, I like the weather here. I like the people here. It's much better than dinging out of the snow 8 months of the year.
Yeah. I'm not even used to cold weather, so now I'm really. It's tough for me to have to wear socks sometimes living where I live. I can't imagine being in Ottawa.
Are you a socks and sandals kind of guy?
Dude, I live in 80 to 90 degrees all year. There's no season.
You see, what disappoints me, Mac, is that you're outside of the U.S. and you're still using imperial measurement.
What's that?
You're outside the U.S. And, yeah.
You know, you want to hear something funny about that?
Let's hear
it. So I'm aware when someone asks you how tall you are, like centimeters here, they go on centimeters, I think, right? So you wouldn't say 6 foot or what, but Celsius, I still don't adapt to, but I really don't ever check the weather. Isn't that crazy? I just don't check the weather. I just look at the sky like, when you live in the tropics, like storms come in and come out. It's, I don't know. It's different kind of weather, and it's always going to be hot. So I wear shoes and I can wear jeans. Like when people first are here, they can't wear jeans because it's just so hot for them. But I'll wear jeans and I'll wear shoes. But I like my flip-flops. And the ironic thing is, growing up in the Bay Area, we didn't wear flip-flops. You guys call them sandals, but flip-flops are more like the rainbow sandals or those, which are big in SoCal. And it took me like a year after living in San Diego. I was like, why does everyone wear fucking open-toe shoes, like flip-flops? I don't get this. And then a year later, I'm like, all right, every day. Because it's just comfortable. But yeah, that's why, because it's wet. I mean, it's warm. There was a guy that was he was a client of mine like 4.5, 5 years ago. He's married now. He's from the East Coast and he was just in town. So he was just like, hey man, I'm going to be in town. Do you mind? You want to hang out? And I was like, absolutely. We got dinner like 3 days in a row. And he's in pretty good shape, and he has a position in the health industry. And we went hiking, and he almost hit the deck a couple times, man, because of the weather. I'm just used to it, the heat. It's just hard. Yeah, I used to call them thongs when I was young, but we call them flip flops. I don't know why.
Apparently, you're 7 feet tall, Mac.
I'm 6 feet tall. 7 feet tall? Okay, 7 feet. I would be playing hoops if that was true. I didn't get my growth spurt till I was 18, though. So I was a definite late bloomer. It was definitely late. 7 feet. Isn't that's like real big question now? Do you know that, Clutch? Like a lot of
the 6'6".
A lot of the red pill stuff. Like, let's just start up with most women are looking for guys that are 6 foot or taller. It's like, where did this come from?
You've heard of the 666?
Yeah. The problem with it is like some of the younger clients I have, they're like, look, dude, I'm 5'7", like I'm already fucked. I'm like, what? Like it just, well, actually I'm short. It's like, what? Like, how is this so limited? I don't know where they got this from.
Well, it's funny because most people, when they meet me first, they usually meet me digitally, especially at work. And they'll see me. And I've gotten this comment more than one occasion where someone will come up to me and say, you sounded a lot taller. And I looked at him.
What a backhanded comment, dude.
I'll take it as a compliment. But yeah, I've definitely gotten that comment more than once.
That's funny. That's B right there that says 5'11", don't lie. I'm 6 foot, but I'm probably 6 inches in neck. I got a long neck.
What are we talking about here, Mac?
Yeah. My neck. But yeah, it's such a big deal now. I'm surprised by how many, because the way I compare it is that women with their assets, it's like, yeah, would most guys prefer, right, a nice set of fill in the blank? Would they only filter for that? No, I don't think so, because there's plenty of guys.
Hope not.
Right?
Yeah. Like
there's some guys that'll be like, oh, I've met plenty of guys who are like, I don't even care about that. So I would say that I think that you would prefer it or you're attracted to it initially, but it's not necessarily a given. There's no given to it. As a nice lady dating world, do you have a height requirement, Rye? Well, there you go. I think it's probably more common with dating apps because you're going to filter for what you prefer. So I could see women filtering guys out because of that, which is up to them. That's part of the dating app thing. You can filter people out that you don't want to date. But oh, you're 5'9", Raj, tall. Shorter guys, I prefer taller though. There you go. You can't wear heels then, huh?
I've dated girls that are 5'10", and wore heels. I have no issues with it. But it's just a question.
They do. Well, the funny thing is they do. The only reason I know this, and I'm not proud of this or anything. The only reason I know this, I sold shoes to women when I was in college. And that was like, women would be like, oh, I can't wear those. Why? My husband's a little short. I'm like, he cares? No, I care. Multiple times, many times. They would say like, oh, I can't, I don't want to be. And I'd always think, oh, no, they would care. It's weird.
Go ahead.
I've never been in the situation though, to be honest, because I've never dated a woman that was taller than me or close to taller than me. I guess I've always liked shorter women.
You living in Thailand being 6 foot? No, don't tell me.
I don't even, what's funny? I don't even think of 6 foot being so tall because my father's 6 feet. His brothers were all 6'1" or 6'2". My friends were all well, they weren't 6 feet, but like 5'10", 5'11". I had one friend that was shorter. He definitely had a chip on his shoulder about that. To me, a lot of the guys that are like 5'5", 5'6", I don't know if you're that height, but a lot of them like
just to
you're
clarify,
5 what?
5'8".
All right. They work out more.
Yeah.
They tend to work out more, and they tend to buy bigger cars or big motorcycles.
The
things
bigger
like that.
the bigger the wheel circumference, the more the compensation. Is that how it goes?
I guess. I don't know. But like friends of mine that were really short, they definitely went to the gym more. Like they got more stocky, more big. But yeah, I mean, I never thought when I was younger that it was that big a deal.
I mean, also when we're younger, and I don't know if you remember like grade school when people first started dating in like grade 8 or grade 9. Usually the girls were taller than the boys because they were hitting puberty a lot quicker.
Yeah, that's true. There you go. And I was definitely, when I was middle school to high school, shorter. I was short. I was 5'3" when I was a freshman. I was short, small guy. So, I mean, it didn't bother me then though. Like, I still had a big mouth.
And then the ones that invested in you when you were 5'3" and saw you grow up to be a 6 foot was like, look at my return on investment, girls.
I just run into people from high school. They're like, oh, you got tall. Like, wow, you're taller than I thought. People's body types are so different though. It's kind of funny because everyone has some things that they don't like. And they think like everyone else notices them, and people don't notice them that much usually. It's like, it's not that big a deal as you get older. Certainly not that big a deal as you get married, right? Yeah, you're married now.
I was talking to one of my coworkers the other day, and I couldn't stop laughing because she was complaining about some guy she went on a date with that she met on a dating app. And she said, Marco, he said he was 5'6". He was shorter than me. And she's like 5'3".
It's so common.
Very
it's common. So common that people say they get catfished on there. I mean, what's the answer to that?
How tall you are?
No, like the problem with dating apps right now that people are feeling like they're getting catfished, or they're ending up with someone that didn't look like their picture. And like the guy I was just talking to this week that came to visit, he was like, dude, if you did matchmaking with what you know, I'm like, I would consider doing it, but everyone lives in different states. But that's not a really commonly thing done. I could see that being done in LA.
I would say the opposite. I would say it's very common that men
real in LA.
Yeah.
You'd be good at it.
Even outside of LA, like even in Ottawa, people used to lie about their height. It's
no, not lying about your height, about having matchmakers.
Oh yeah. I'm completely with you there.
Like that would be an alternative. He was telling me, he's like, if you had someone that you recommended to me after doing breakup coaching and talking to you, he's like, I would definitely, but it's just not. I think even if I look at someone as a good match, I don't know exactly what you're attracted to, because everyone assumes, you know what I'm saying? I might say, oh, she's really nice, and it's like, I'm not attracted.
Well, it also depends on what sparks people attraction. Is it strictly physique? Is it a repressed trauma? Is it a certain love language or attachment style, or a certain key characteristic? Like everyone's different.
How many?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm listening.
I was going to say, if you're like me, I have 5 or 6 types that I usually dated when I dated. And each one was different. And I liked each one. I settled for a specific type, but it doesn't mean that I didn't find the other 5 attractive.
Wow. So some people have multiple personalities and you have multiple types. That's interesting.
Yep.
Do you have to play different characters for the different types?
I'm not an actor or anything like that. I'm always the same goofy person. Like on my personal, that's the one thing I will say about myself, patting my ego on the back. The person I play on camera is pretty closely aligned with the person I am in real life, at least as far as like my sense of humor and the way I speak. I try to be very genuine, just because having grown up around people that weren't very genuine, it's definitely something that I look out for.
Well, I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
Coming to this channel. You said that, I'm sorry, BW says the answer is a Skype date first. Okay. I've only been on maybe 2 times that there were like blind dates or someone's trying to hook you up, you know, like, oh, you should go out with this.
Rye Flynn is saying she could be all 6 types.
Your multiple personality type. Have you been on many where someone tried to hook you up? You know, like, oh, I got a friend for you.
I mean, me personally, or
yeah.
No,
Not really common anymore, because like it used to be common. Like someone would be like, "Oh, I got a friend," or like, "You should meet my friend." I think with dating apps, it kind of killed it.
I've set people up. I've met 2 friends and said, "You guys would be perfect for each other," and they actually dated for a number of years.
There you go.
Yeah, it's just it's intuitive. It's basically how you want to cut the pie, so to speak.
They didn't blame you when they broke up, though.
I wasn't talking to them at the time, so I never really found out.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting situation. Like, hey, this is my friend. Did you think you'd like to go out with her? And you see the picture, and you're like, I'm actually seeing someone right now. Oh, you didn't say that before. Yeah. No, I've been talking to someone, but I'll let you know if that
Do you know that like dating show, and I forget what it's called, but they have people blindfolded and they're just talking to the person across from them, and if any person dislikes something about the other person, they can press the red button at the center of the table to move on to the next person.
It's fucked up, dude.
Yeah, and the whole incentive is
so who gets the power of the red button? The better looking person?
The person who figures out they don't want to be with the other person quicker, because the person that presses the button gets to stay at the table.
It's a bad competition.
Yeah, it's really how do I put this? Instant gratify, if that's even a word.
I would just if they like hit the buzzer on you, it's like, don't flatter yourself, hon. I wasn't interested anyways. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. I wanted you to do that.
This is where you get up and you step over them.
Right? It's like, I mean, we're creating a contest where someone, the winning party humiliates or hurts the other person in the first dating part.
With that?
Yeah.
With that? Why is there so much emphasis on humiliating the other?
American culture is big, man, with that. It's big because like living in Thailand, it's not looked upon good. Yeah. Like if you do that to people, you're looked upon as very low. Like, and people won't like egg you on to do it. They'll kind of just give you like a look, like, what are you doing? Yeah. Why are you doing that? And now in the States, it's like, it's so cool to make people look stupid. You know, like there's even a guy on YouTube, and I'll admit I watched some of it. He's going around, take it easy, Ben. Thanks for riding with us. He's doing, you know, shorts and YouTube clips where he's going into ghetto areas, bad areas, and he's like, "What's up, man? Did you want to get sliced up? You want to get sliced up?" And then the guys the guys are chasing him or grabbing him, like, "You're in my hood," da, 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 you know, like going after him. And he's had like all these close calls and guns pulled on him. And then he's like, there's a camera right there. There's a camera. And I'm like, dude, have you seen The Crocodile Hunter? Like, you're gonna, like, you keep doing this, you're gonna die. You're gonna, like, someone's gonna get you. But he's trying to humiliate them to look, you know what I mean? Because they're like, once the camera comes out, some of them are like ready to hit him, but they don't want to hit him in front of the camera. And he's like, oh, you know, just a joke, just a prank. It's like,
I hate prank videos. Absolutely.
I think if you were like in a fraternity or you had like college roommates, it would be fun because everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, but that's what I mean? Like 22. Like,
yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. In that context, like when I had my college roommates, we'd always, you know, joke around or tease each other. But like when you stage stuff like that, where you're making you know what I mean? That's too much. You don't think that's real, B? I think it's real. I think that I don't know. I think that they're doing that, but someone's going to get them. There's a lot of people with guns in the States, man. That's something that's like, everyone used to make a statement. Like in the last 10 years, from 10 years ago, there's double or triple people that carry guns that never did before, that just carry. They just have guns.
like it's so crazy for me. Like you grew up around the same time I did. Like you remember Columbine, and that was such a one-off. It was such a, oh wow, that's a horrible thing. It's never going to happen again. And now we're at a point where every single school, at least that I'm aware of, has drills for an active shooter. Like it's absolutely insane.
It's not going away either.
No, it's not. Well,
I think that.
Yeah.
I think it's way more common now. I think they don't even air out everything that happens. But
yeah, so sad. Like I don't know. I always grew up being a very pro restriction on guns. I just never understood the obsession. That's just something I can't relate to.
Yeah, it has to do with the way your upbringing and all those other things. I think the thing that's now is that just surprising me is that people that are collecting automatic weapons that are people killers that don't need them. Hunting and fishing and doing outdoor activities, or you're a part of the military. Okay, maybe that's your thing. I grew up hunting, so I was around guns when I was young. I'm okay with them, but now people having arsenals in their house just to have them. There's a lot of.
There's better ways to spend your money.
Just to have them, it's surprising. I don't know the answer to it though. Like, you know, everyone's like, oh, just get rid of all guns or anything like that. That's not going to happen. But it's a difficult one because I would say move somewhere there's less guns.
Yeah, no, I'm you can't get rid of something that's that ingrained.
Yeah, like when people get in those, it's like it's part of the culture. It's part of our American culture, the Bill of Rights, all that stuff. So where I'm at now, it's very rare to see someone that is like that. But I definitely notice it when I'm home, so it's different.
Mm-hmm. It's like when people date an extreme avoidant from LA. Well, just move.
You want the shortcut? Move. As I just say that. Can't move. All right. Well, then you don't have the shortcut.
Or import something. Import something from a different area that doesn't have this issue with needing to project.
Are you in LA or are you like in Orange County now?
Orange County.
Is that different than, because you were living in Santa Monica before, right?
Yeah, I was living in Santa Monica, and then I moved to Venice. Then I went to Chile, and then when I came back, I moved to Irvine. So here I am.
You like that?
Yes, I do. It's definitely a lot calmer. The problem with living like right on the pier is that I was just used to there being constant traffic and constant noise and constant people. And like if you take a walk on Santa Monica Pier, you'll walk 3 seconds before you find the influencer taking an obsessive amount of selfies.
Oh yeah.
And it's just, you get away from that. Like initially, like when I moved here, I was like, yeah, this is amazing. This is the life I'm looking for. This is the culture I want to immerse in. And then as you get older, you're just like, there's better ways to use my time.
Yeah, I understand. Well, that sounds good. You're definitely in a different spot. It's good to move a few different places and find what's best. A lot of times like Venice Beach or those kind of places, they have an expiration date.
Yep.
In San Diego, I lived in Mission Beach and PBA, loved it. Couldn't see myself there for, ever. So Riflin's bailing out. Ben's bailing out. Maybe it's time. I know it's late for you too, bud. Well, thanks for coming on and joining and giving us all we can handle with the attachment theory and more. A lot of bonuses in there.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon, buddy. We'll talk soon.
All right, bud. Take care.
Have a good one.
All right, folks. It's been good. It's been grand. Thank you very kindly. If you want to go to rightmac.com to book a live coaching session, go for it. If not, that's just fine. Riflin, thank you. Ben, thanks. B, always a pleasure. Oh, that was the Truth of Love that came on for a little bit, and then we just got into talking about a little bit about everything. Titanic, hope you're feeling better about the answer on that. And Sam Lujan, I'll be in contact. And May, it's curtains. Take care, all.